Under Scenario 4, the proposed constitutional amendment seeks to strengthen the independence of Parliament in Malaysia. Introduced in 2025 by our Prime Minister, Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim, the amendment aims to reinforce the principle of separation of powers by ensuring that Parliament operates independently from the executive. At the heart of this reform is the revival of the Parliamentary Services Act (PSA), which was originally enacted in 1963. To grant Parliament full control over its administration, staffing, and financial. The revival of the PSA will restore Parliament's authority to manage its own affairs without executive interference, similar to the administrative independence enjoyed by the judiciary. Additionally, to oversee Parliament's internal management, the amendment established a Parliamentary Service Commission, which is PSC, comprising senior members from both the Senate and the House of Representatives. Hello everyone, we are from Book 4, so we're going to discuss about the Constitution Amendment Bill.
Article 44 of the Federal Constitution vested the legislative authority in Parliament, while Article 39 assigns the executive authority to Yang di-Pertuan Agong, exercisable by Cabinet led by Prime Minister. But the Constitution Amendment Act 1992 abolished the Parliament Service Act 1963, transferred the administration, maintenance, staffing and financing matters of Parliament into portfolio under Minister in Prime Minister Department, placing our legislature under direct executive control. The clerk to Senate and clerk to House of Representatives was converted from parliamentary service officers into a general public servant, while Article 132 Clause 1 of Federal Constitution defines public servants means that they hold the office at Yang di-Pertuan Agong pleasures, which can type into cabinet advice under Article 40. They are responsible for keeping custody of votes and proceeding records, the bills, and other documents that they go before the House. Of course, they can set aside other bills or motion to focus on debate session of certain bills that intend to be passed by Cabinet and speakers immediately. The clerk do not have an opportunity to advise on proper parliamentary procedure that may oppose the government order. It was also expected that debate on minority report provided by oppositions that consists of recommendation of bills may be easily rejected due to reasons of constraint of time. From passing the Peaceful Assembly Act 2012 to Anti-Fake News Act 2018 in 30 days, our country was not strange with bills that were tabled without sufficient public consultation or passed within adequate time allocated for the debate. Although in a cabinet system, government bills usually sail on the ruling majority, but a truly democratic parliament will still allocate adequate time and opportunity for the debate and consultations. Over the years, many NGOs, including Bersih, have consistently advocated for strengthening parliamentary democracy in Malaysia throughout various public demonstrations. As Maria Chin Abdullah once emphasized, democracy is more than just an election. It is about participation, debates, and accountability. To fulfill that idea, parliamentary must not only reflect the view of majority, but it provide a source for meaningful dissent and deliberations. Financial autonomy under the management of the Parliamentary Service Council enables the hiring of expert research to provide various suggestions to the Parliament, and the investment in technological advancement for visuals, heating, and live casting through the financial autonomy. The Parliament is often referred as the House of People, a place where citizens' voices are heard, their concerns are addressed. However, the recent events such as the incident involving Teo Peng Book being denied entry to submit a memorandum highlight a disconnect between idea and the current practices. In December 2024, over 50 journalists and civil society members marched to Parliament to submit a memorandum protesting proposed amendment to media law, which Communication Minister Fahmi Fadzli received the memorandum at parliamentary entrance, but the group was not allowed to go inside. The scenario raised critical questions about accessibility and transparency of the Parliament. The Parliament Select Committee PSC session, for instance, are not open to the public, and the proceeding remain confidential until rewards are tabled in the Dewan Rakyat. Along with Section 14, Subsection 1A of Parliament Service Act, parliamentary service officers shall not disclose any information that obtained by him in the course of his duties. And several reforms could happening soon, that including a formal process for citizens to submit memorandum and petitions directly to Parliament to ensure that their voice are heard and considered. A long journey began with a single steps. Reform is not an oversight endeavor. It requires a phased and deliberate approach to amend the legislation. Present passage of Parliamentary Service Bill 2025 marks a significant first step towards restoring parliament autonomy in Malaysia.
Amendment of the Constitution, Amendment Bill 2025 was introduced to all the members of Parliament through the first reading in the Dewan Rakyat by the Minister of Law and Institutional Reform, Dato Sri Azalina binti Osman Said, on 24th February 2025. The Blue Bill has been distributed on that day. That includes detail of the amendment for them to prepare for the next reading soon. On the second reading, the Prime Minister suggests proceeding with the second reading of the bill. After that, the Tuan Yang Dipertua will announce that the second reading will be started, and he will read the list of people who will debate in the second reading session. Each representative can debate for 7 minutes each. After that, the representative, with the consent of the Tuan Yang Dipertua, will start the speech alternately. At the end of the debate session, the Tuan Yang Dipertua gave a chance to Dato Sri Azalina to answer the question and rebut statements made during the debate session. After that, to pass the bill to go to the next reading, there will be a vote which needs 2/3 majority to pass the amendment according to the Article 159 Clause 3 of Federal Constitution, which is 148 people out of 222 members. The voting starts for a period of 10 minutes, and the result of the vote will be checked by each block representative appointed by the Tuan Yang Dipertua with an observer who will help the person who checks the result of the vote. On 4th March 2025, the results are 148 members out of 222 members of both houses of Parliament, which reached the requirement passing the bill to the next reading. On the same day, the third reading was held by suggestion of the Minister, and the person backed the suggestion. The bill was passed with 148 members out of 222 members of the Parliament, which means that the bill will be read at the Dewan Negara soon. After that, the bill will be brought to Dewan Negara for another 3 readings. The reading process in Dewan Negara is the same as procedure in Dewan Rakyat, where the first reading will be held to tell the members of the Dewan Negara about the bill that had been passed in Dewan Rakyat. In the second reading, it will come to the debate sessions and voting session, which, according to Article 159 Clause 3, an absolute 2/3 majority of Dewan Negara needed, which is 39 members out of 57. On 30th March 2025, the bill passed by a total vote of 46 members of Dewan Negara. In the third reading, the bill also passed but with 47 members out of 57. For the last procedure, it will be presented to the Yang di-Pertuan Agong for royal assent and will come into operation on a date to be appointed by the Yang di-Pertuan Agong by notification in Gazette. For the amendment of Parliamentary Service Act 2005, known as PSA, the process of the amendment is a little bit different. In Dewan Rakyat, for the second reading, Dato Sri Azalina gave a brief talk about the PSA and listed up all the acts in the PSA. After that, the Yang di-Pertua will announce the second reading will be started and open to debate. The time given is less than reading for the Constitution Amendment Bill, which is 5 minutes each. For voting, they use a method called majority voice vote. A session will be held after the debate session, where all the representatives will hit the table and see either agreement or disagreement sound louder. At the end of the debate session, Dato Sri Azalina will wrap up. After that, in third reading, a session will begin to discuss the addition and deletion for the draft. In that session, all the suggestions will be discussed and decide whether the changes are needed or not. In Dewan Negara, method majority voice vote also has been applied in this hall, where if the agree sound is bigger than disagree sound, or vice versa, will make the amendment pass or not pass. After that, the House will sit as the committee, and after discussion, there is no more other amendment, and it was passed in the Dewan Negara on 20th March 2025.
Next is the advantages and the effects on the governance and democracy. So the first one is strengthens parliamentary oversight and check and balance. Reviving the Parliamentary Services Act restores Parliament's ability to perform its oversight role independently. Without relying on the Prime Minister's Department for staffing and funding, Parliament can form select committees, question ministers, and hold hearings without interference. This autonomy strengthens the separation of powers, ensuring the executive is held accountable and that public governance becomes more transparent and responsible. Second is builds an inclusive and professional legislative institution. With the PSA in place, Parliament will provide equal access to administrative, support for all MPs regardless of political party. A dedicated, non-partisan staff under Parliament's control encourages balanced debates and informed decision making. This professional and inclusive environment improves the quality of laws and aligns Malaysia with the legislative standard and mature democracies like the UK and Australia. So the last one is aligns democracy with global democratic goals SDG 16. The Bible of PSA reflects Malaysia's commitment to Sustainable Development Goal 16, peace, justice, and strong institutions, which promotes effective and inclusive institutions. A fully independent parliament can better craft laws that serve public needs and ensure accountability through collaboration with civil society. This reform not only improves domestic governance but also enhances Malaysia's democratic reputation globally.
On the other hand, it has some drawbacks, which is firstly insufficient job security and vulnerable to administrative intervention. The reintroduction of the Parliamentary Service Act 2025 may raise job security concern as it could cause role confusion, reporting issues and conflicts between parliamentary and civil service staff. The expanded 16-member Parliamentary Service Council compared to 7 members in 1963 may complicate decision making. If Parliament controls its appointments, it could create differences in employment terms and career paths compared to the civil service. Before 1992, senior officers like the SUDR and SUDN had job security similar to judges. However, after the Act's repeal, only early appointees keep this protection, while newer ones could be reassigned. The 2025 bill may allow their dismissal and subject them to General Federal Service rules, which showing a lack of job security. Since the Law and Justice (PIS) party took power in Poland, the ruling party used Parliament's power to control the courts and public service, reducing independence and increasing political pressure on officials. The second one is opposition party may use independence to promote populist issues. Strengthening parliamentary independence reduces government interference, which is allowing opposition party to advocate for their goals and propose legislation that reflects public sentiment. However, increased autonomy could lead to objectives that may not align with constructive policy making. Section 15 of the PSA 2025 provides opposition members with legal protection and protects them from being prosecuted while performing official duties, including those of the Parliamentary Service Council and its committees. Increasing parliamentary independence in Malaysia without adequate protection could lead to issues. Opposition party may focus on sensational issues, causing tension and slowing legislative processes, which could lead to public dissatisfaction, leading people to lose faith in the system. For instance, the AFD, a far-right party in Germany, mostly use parliament to spark controversy and ignore customary rules while presenting itself as a victim on social media. It avoids actual legislative effort, violates democratic norms and puts major parties in a tough position. Last but not least, financial independence is questionable. While the PSA intends to provide Parliament financial autonomy, in fact, this independence might be limited. Parliament's budget would still need to be approved by the executive branch, which could undermine its ability to function independently. The PSA 2025 regulates salaries and funding for the parliamentary service. The advisory committee proposed positions and pay, but all must be approved by the YDPA. Section 13 allows the council to set salary with royal consent, while Section 12 requires the government to ensure sufficient yearly funding. This shows Parliament's aim for financial autonomy will still rely on significant government support. Even with legal budget powers, Parliament's financial independence can be limited if the government restricts overall spending. This reveals weakness as parliamentary budgets may still be subject to broader government fiscal policy.
One of the examples of the Parliamentary Service Act in 2000, which is in New Zealand. The Parliamentary Service Act 2000 restructured the management of administrative service and funding for New Zealand's parliament, ensuring these functions are independent from the executive government. The key changes in the Act include, first, the creation of the Parliamentary Service, which provides support service to Parliament. Second, a General Manager who reports directly to the Speaker of the House. Third, the establishment of a Parliamentary Service Commission to advise on rules for services and funding. Fourth, the creation of a review committee to keep things in check. And lastly, a Parliamentary Corporation responsible for managing Parliament's assets.
The Act gives the Speaker control over the parliamentary buildings and sets clear rules for evidence filing based on the advice of the Commission. In summary, the proposed constitutional amendment and the revival of the Parliamentary Service Act introduced by the Prime Minister Dato Sri Anwar Ibrahim to ensure parliamentary independence represent a significant step forward strengthening Malaysia's democratic framework. By re-establishing the Parliamentary Service Commission, this reform aims to restore the separation of powers by ensuring that parliamentary functions more effectively, professionally and autonomously. As a result, enhancing its ability to uphold democracy and provide checks and balances on the executive. However, the proposed amendment may also bring unintended drawbacks that could leave a lasting impact on the country. Therefore, while the reform offers a lot of benefits, it must be carefully implemented to avoid potential negative consequences that may undermine its original intent. Despite all the drawbacks of amendment, we shall be ready in pursuing reform and take that decisive step to establish true separation of powers in Malaysia. Such a change requires boldness and resolve because justice delay is justice denied.